What's a secret that could ruin your life if it comes out? Viewer edition. Hey there, folks. Little content warning at the top of the video. A number of these stories are going to deal with things such as unwanted romantic advances, mental abuse, and self-termination. And so if you are uncomfortable with those topics, you may want to skip this video or just be prepared that those topics are going to come up. Story 1. I know this wouldn't fully ruin my life, but here it goes. Back in April to early June 2022 of this year, I watched one of my female friends in particular on campus. In fact, before I rejoined the autism classrooms in 9th grade, I'd actually not wanted to rejoin it again because one of the reasons was seeing one of my female friends a lot. So I had the idea of watching her in order to get closer to her and her hair. We're getting closer to her hair means seeing her hair down more often. And once I joined the autism classrooms, my art teacher gave me a chance of changing my PE schedule from second period to third period, which I did since I knew she attended that latter period. I would watch this girl by watching her go to her art class, the same art class as me, from very far away in the hallways. I started to do it on April 25th, 2022. Even one time I was late to art class because I watched her go to her class period, stayed behind something, the class walls, so she wouldn't see, and watch me, watching her leave one of her classes. I stopped it at the incredibly end of the year, since it was the end of the year, and decided to not do it anymore. Running one of the art class bells rang in order to see her, watching her walk from one of my former non-autism classes to the point where I did not see her, going to the area of one of that former classroom in order to watch and see her, and watching her go to the next class as she left that classroom, watching her go to her class period after lunch was over in 10th grade, running in order to see her and seeing her go to her last class period of the day before school was over. It was pretty easy to watch her. If she figures it out, which is highly unlikely, there is a likelihood that she would block me from calling and messaging her contacts list, and stop talking to me ever again and would stop being my friend. One time in November 2022, she called my name over from very far away. I was going to ask her multiple things in private. Thought she was going to ask me, "Do you want to become my girlfriend?" where I would have automatically said yes. She actually told me to stop watching her and following her around campus, which felt very out of character to me for her to say, especially since she didn't even use please in her sentence, and the fact that she's a really sweet girl, someone implying that she knows about it, where I was slightly mad over it to the point where I was not going to ask her, "Can you become my girlfriend?" on that day, though I did it 3 weeks later, got rejected, and ended up feeling really mad at her for 2 weeks. I eventually asked her if she enjoyed the field before getting interrupted, and she said, "Go away, Daniel." I asked why, and she said, "You bother me, Daniel." I was pretty mad and even went into a classroom and cried, and the desk got wet. Eventually, I decided I wanted to send a love letter to her that read, "Roses are red, violets are pink, from your crush." Then 2 days later, the speech teacher talked to me about sending the love letter and it being against the school rules. The love letter was supposed to be romantic and cute. I also think she blocked me 1 month after I sent it. Okay, I'm not a therapist or an authority on this, and so these are just my opinions and words. But I do think that what you're doing is wrong. And basically, you are watching this person from afar, and she could make a case that this is nearing the point of stalking because she's asked you to leave her alone. She's made clear that she's not interested. And I think it'd be best for you to respect that. You don't want to keep forcing these romantic feelings on someone who's not going to reciprocate because it's just going to end up hurting you. But in the end, I'm not a professional. All I'm going to suggest is that you talk to someone professional about this, because I think that, you're dealing with some emotions. You clearly care for this person, and I would assume want what is best for both them and yourself. And I think that you do need to talk to someone about this because it is a bit misguided. And like I said, she could make a case that this could be stalking. And I don't want you to get in that kind of trouble because I feel like your heart is in the right place, but you are going about it in a way that is, it is infringing on her in ways I can't quite put into words. Story 2. Back in elementary school in 2nd and 5th grade, I was in a small but heated argument with two separate classmates where I might have went too far by making fun of their dead fathers. The first one in 2nd grade was with a kid I later learned from my sister was held back and had to transfer to my school in special ed like me when I was way younger before I transferred back into regular classes in the 4th grade. Aside from that, all I knew about his father was that he had passed away when he was younger. We got into a heated back and forth as both friends and enemies throughout that because I was the only Star Wars fan I knew as a kid, and he said he hated it. So part of me felt overly angry since it was everything to me as a kid, especially since it previously brought me closer to my own father, whom only texts me a few times a year, if that. I guess I did technically pay for what I said later in life. The second time was in 5th grade, where I did it to a girl who was previously friendly to me, but also joined in on the rest of the class in a frog joke directed towards me. Unlike the first one, I knew a lot more about her situation, where I heard her dad was shot, and so I didn't hold back on my insults, and she started crying with almost everyone looking at me raw for what I did. I was even called into our homeroom teacher's class at the end of the day before the bell rang to be questioned, but ultimately received no punishment at school or even at home, despite my mom being somewhat mad over what I did. This was probably due to me constantly having issues that year as I transferred to a new school that later closed at the end of the year. The worst part is how I later even went as far as to say her father was in hell as the devil's plaything a few days later. Crazy enough, I wasn't hated for the rest of the year after those incidents and pretty much carried on as normal to the end of the year when the school was going to close anyway. I think the worst part is how I genuinely only feel guilty towards the first kid in 2nd grade because we truly did get along to a degree where he was one of my closest friends ever at the time, and felt the need to apologize to him when I saw him again when I was in 8th grade. I know I was wrong to go that far in both cases, but I can't really hold it against myself because we were ultimately still kids and we hit below the belt. At least I feel that way towards the second one. I don't think sharing these would ruin my life per se, but it also isn't something I can look back on and have a good laugh at either. I mean, yeah, you were kids, and of course it was wrong, and that is a lesson that you're learning. But if there's one thing I've noticed with kids, you get to certain ages where you start to try and push boundaries for what's okay as jokes, what's okay when you're, arguing or mad. And kids push and oftentimes go past these boundaries. And yeah, what you did sucked, and I would feel bad about that too. It's a crappy thing to say. I've said things, maybe not exactly like that, but in that same region where, yeah, even now, 30 years later, I'm like, oh, I can't believe I said that. But a lot of kids are going to do that and explore that, it can be a part of growing up for a lot of them. So yeah, I wouldn't hold that too harshly against yourself, but it is nice that you were able to repair that one friendship. Story 3. The one that killed a man hit deep. I once shot a guy in defense. It wasn't self-defense. I was in a kind of situation back then, and I was in a bad company. My buddies and I would do all sorts of stupid, illegal, and dangerous crap. That day, the guy we were working for told us to go out and scare some guy. We were supposed to stand around, throw insults, maybe make a few threats. But crap got out of control. He was one of those dudes who psychotically followed local MMA fighters, was training it, and thought he could beat anyone. He lunged for my homie, who laid a good one in his nose. Dude took a few steps back and tried to dizzily swing at me, and one dude kicked him behind the knee, and I laid a good one for a kid. He spun around and whipped a knife out and went for the guy that kicked him. There were 4 of us, and I was the only one that had a weapon. I took it out and hit him in the leg. His screams are stuck in my head, begging, crying, cussing. Buddies ran into the car, and I was frozen. They called an ambulance. I just picked up the shell and ran towards the car. I spent 3 nights drinking to the point of throwing up and then drinking more. Story 4. I live in a very religious family. They love me, and I love them. If they find out that I wasn't as religious as they were, and they found out that I don't believe in God, then I'd receive massive amounts of scolding in return. They teach me the ways of God, and I go to church every Sunday with them and read the Bible or pray when asked to, but I don't believe in any of it. I've lied to them about it for as long as I've been born because as a kid, I secretly feared the concept of dying because that either meant one of two things. I live in a paradise or I burn for eternity. They don't know I'm suffering like this, but it'll affect my life so much if I told anyone because they'd practically force me every day to read the Bible and follow their word for it when I can't believe in it. It would only make me suffer the pain of guilt more than what they'd feel thinking the pain that they were the ones who did something wrong to make me like this when it was all my own fault for not following their ways, thus causing more pain to them than me, and I don't want to hurt them like that. For as long as I can keep it to myself, I plan to take this to my grave so I don't hurt anyone. This technically wouldn't ruin my life, but it's the world that I gotta live in that I'm being forced into something that I don't want to do, even though they love me and only want what's best for me. I can't live like that, and I don't want to if I've already come so far in this one big lie that I call my life. I just want to live normally, not be pressured into it. It's really, really tough being non-religious when you have a very religious family. And the best I can say is just, keep persevering. And I can't tell you what's right or wrong, how to approach that. I have my own personal opinions, but I hope that you do whatever you feel is best for you. But if it starts to really weigh on you, I would encourage you to find someone that you trust that you can talk to about this stuff, because it is good to at least have that kind of support network if you can't get that support within your family. Story 5. Well, in AIT, I technically cheated on a test. I changed one bubble and I passed. Why did I cheat? I kept going back and forth between the two answers, and I was the last one working on it when he called out answers. I filled in the right answer. I was horrible at that job, and not because I made it through one test. I kept failing exams almost every single one we had. While I was crazy, many people assumed that I was CID, and that terrified everyone. It's all in your head. Nothing is more powerful than EO, complaint, or R, true or not. There were like 6 females in the whole field, and everyone kept getting pregnant or resigned due to hostilities. We were those who must be upheld. I don't think it would ruin my life if it came out. My life is totaled anyway for a billion other reasons. A lot of people cheat on exams. They'd psychopathically believe that's why everything happened. It's never happened before, okay? Story 6. I'll never admit this to my close friends or family, but I've been borderline considering self-termination due to my brother for the past 3 to 4 years. My brother has a multitude of disorders like autism and bipolar, and as a result, he's aggressive and a walking hypocrite. I'm 18 and he's 21, yet he constantly acts like a spoiled 12-year-old despite us being poor. I literally do everything I can not to pee him off, but nothing works. He yells at me, belittles me, even growls just to intimidate me. No, he's never hit me or touched me in a bad place, but he's mentally and emotionally damaged me beyond repair. And because of the small apartment my family lives in, all I can do is deal with it. Every time I tell my parents this, they always suggest moving me into another room in the house, but there's literally no room anywhere. This constant mistreatment has made me think about just ending it all. Here's the thing, I don't want to for the sake of my only friends all online. However, that doesn't mean I don't constantly think about it. I know his brain handles everything differently, but it's never an excuse to treat me like a damn stress toy over the dumbest things. My parents can't do much either due to how he behaves, and we've tried just about everything. Nothing works. And due to how slowly everything like learning how to drive is getting, I can't just move out since I have nowhere to go and I make no money. Of course, I don't think this will ruin my life, but it's still a secret I refuse to tell close people, although I suspect people on my friends group may think this. And unless they confront me first, I'll never tell. At least, not until I'm out of this house. All right, commenter. I'm going to ask you, both you this, and anyone who might be struggling with these feelings. But if you are struggling with feelings of taking your own life, please talk to someone. They have perspectives that you don't, that you're not able to see. And I know it's hard. I know that you are struggling and dealing with stuff that I don't fully understand. I have struggled with my own darker feelings, and I am so happy that I talk to people about it. And I have had friends who struggled with those feelings. And some of them didn't talk to people. And they are gone. And however many years later, I still miss them. But then I have friends who struggled with those feelings, and despite everything in their brain telling them to just bottle it up or whatever, they talked to someone and they worked through it. And every one of those friends who talked with someone and worked through it is with us today, and they have said, essentially, I am so glad that I did. I had no idea how much better things could be. I could not have seen that on my own. So please, folks, if you're struggling with this stuff, talk to someone. It doesn't even have to be anyone who knows you. There are hotlines and everything out there. You can reach out to someone who will keep it private, but that you can be open and honest with. Please. Story 7. When I was about 9 or 10, I was on a family holiday at a campsite. Me and my brother, who is 2 years older than me, got bored, so we decided to play some badminton with another kid that we met on the campsite. After a while, we ended up getting bored of that event, so I had that smart idea of seeing how high we could whack small stones up into the air. Well, it was fun at first, but of course it was never going to end well. I decided that I was going to really put some power into this next shot, so I whacked it as hard as I could. I lost all sense of the direction I had hit it, and about 5 seconds later, the entire back window of a parked car had shattered to nothing and the alarm went blaring off. Of course, we all crapped ourselves and ran as far as we could from the scene. Well, about 10 minutes later, I was absolutely terrified from a distance, watching a crowd of people all around the car trying to figure out what had happened. Well, luckily, that had happened just a few hours before we were leaving the campsite to head home, but I still feel absolutely terrible about it to this day. Story 8. English is not my primary nor original language, yet I am often used to translate documents from French or Spanish to English. I suspect I do not know English as my second language, or they would not pay me extra to translate documents, diagrams, and schematics. However, I've never been asked if English is my original or primary language, thus I do not volunteer the information. Since I work alone, any non-standard pronunciation is never heard. I only translate written work to written work. If work found out, I would probably take an enormous drop in pay and my translation side duties would be taken away. I would still remain as a mechanic, IT professional, electrician, and programmer. However, I have no certifications on translating at all. I would lose that part of my income. Story 9. This is only a secret from my family. My fiancé and I are both bisexual and in a het-presenting relationship. My parents are both pseudo-liberals who claim to support LGBT community when mom was elected to the school board. In college, they disapproved of my first girlfriend for being bi, saying she probably had STDs and would cheat on me. For their two-faced behavior, I vowed to never tell them I'm bisexual. Dad died in January. Mom's health is failing and will probably die in the next few years. My sister is a total B, and I never really speak to her about anything personal. I'm ready to build a life with a woman I love, and we've agreed to safely explore our interests together. I know the secret won't really ruin my life if it comes out, but it would shatter the last years of my mother's life. The shock could very likely give her a heart attack. And I don't care what it would do to my sister for me to be bisexual. I can relate, a little bit at least. I have a very conservative Christian father and stepmother. They're loving, wonderful, supportive people. But they do not know that I'm pansexual. And being that I am also in a hetero-presenting relationship with my partner who is female, they never have to question it. And I have thought about coming out about it, but I know that my stepmother would be okay, my dad wouldn't, and that weighs on me, and it feels kind of awful to hold that in, and I don't know if the answer is being out and comfortable with these people or not. Everyone's got their own opinions. I don't have great advice. I just have, sympathy, empathy. I get it, and I hope that you're happy at least. Story 10. So I live near a dinosaur park with many gigantic life-size dinosaur statues. Some are robots that can produce sound or even more. In that park, there's a sand pit where small gems, animal teeth, or even expensive materials like gold are buried for kids to dig out. When I was younger, I always went there and sought as many as I could, took 3 because you were only allowed to take 3, and threw in the rest. I later discovered that I had a secret pocket in my jacket that had room for much more gems than just 3. I still have the gems inside of small glass containers. Story 11. I burned 3 houses in my neighborhood down. My cousin had gotten us some bottle rockets from out of state, and I wasn't supposed to be out there until after dinner. I snuck to his car with my girlfriend, now my wife, and we wanted to shoot too. The rockets ricocheted from a tree, caught some dry grass on fire, and it all went up. I guess the debris never showed because the firefighters never mentioned it. My cousin knew probably because of our faces, but since they were illegal at the time, he never told anyone either. We do not speak, and we haven't for about 20 years. Story 12. So when I was 9 years old, I had a candle mostly on when visitors came over to pray Salah and stuff. The candle would always stay on. I was really curious at the time and gotten a sheet of paper and out it over the fire, and it caught on fire. My aunt was coming over, so I put the paper on the ground and hide it. I then waited for her to leave and picked it up and put water on the sheet of paper, and it made a small black stain on the carpet. I got perfume and sprayed it all over the living room so I could cover under the smell. The stain faded, I think, and I regret it deeply. Story 13. So it wouldn't ruin my life, but my twins. He relentlessly bullies me. My parents know this but can't do anything to stop it. Now, this is the part they don't know. By bullying me, he mentally shattered me, destroyed my identity, made me lose a couple emotions to the point where if I felt them again, I would have a massive mental breakdown, has given me so much stress I forgot my entire childhood and actually literally drove me insane. I was insane and somehow kept it secret. I eventually recovered after 4 years. Bro, I'm almost 14 now, and I've had the amount of mental damage that the average war veteran would have. Again, I'll just keep suggesting, folks, it's okay to seek out therapy. In this day and age, it's easier to get to. I know everyone doesn't have access, but being able to talk with people about that, even if you think that you are over some stuff, it helps to have that unbiased third party there talking through things with you. I am sorry for that, what you went through. It sounds awful. And I do genuinely hope that you are doing a lot better now and that your life continues to get better. But if you do ever feel any kind of struggle, please don't hesitate to try and find some trusted person that you can talk to. Story 14. It sounded like he was the boy who cried wolf once too often and destroyed his own credibility. So when something really big did happen and he cried out for help, nobody believed him. I've got a somewhat similar story about losing credibility, not gang R, from when I was a kid. My 2 cousins and I went to the community pool, and on the way back, the younger one complained something was wrong with her foot and she couldn't walk. We'd always play jokes on each other like this, so her brother and I figured she just wanted 2 guys to carry her home and ignored her, made her hobble half a mile home. When I visited a few days later, her entire foot was in a cast. She'd broken her toe. She hadn't been making it up. Ever since then, if someone complains about something that could be serious, it doesn't matter if they're a pathological liar or the biggest practical joker on the planet, I give them the benefit of the doubt and hear them out. Story 15. There are so many days that I wish I wasn't empathetic. Quite a few of these stories actually brought back a couple memories that involved death in my family and self-termination. The termination part involves me and feeling like I wasn't good enough for anyone's love. I know, life sucks sometimes, but there are so many people that love you and want you to live for them. Death is never the answer. I know because I almost self-terminated myself thrice until my boyfriend called me. I told him everything, and he got on a cam call with me in tears and him comforting me / talking me out of it. He saved me, and I love him with all my heart. Story 16. Story 27 from the original video was deep and a secret that could ruin my life. Due to my past, my mental state got so messed up that I tried to commit several times a day. The worst one was I threw myself out of my attic window and landed on my stomach and managed to rip a hole in it. That's what the doctor said when I came back round. Thankfully, my best mate's mom is a therapist and she gave me therapy for years free of charge. I still think about the horrors I had to go through, though. I just really wanted to thank the people in the last two stories for sharing their struggles with attempts to take their own life or thinking about it, because I do think it can help people to see that there is an other side to these things if you can get through it. And it's not a bad thing to reach out for help. The one person had their boyfriend there, another person got therapy. And granted, they got it for free and we all can't, but there are options out there. And so thank you. It's very brave of you to share those stories, and I'm very happy that we could help share them further. Story 17. When I was 7 years old, I got interested in fire. My parents always kept lighters away from me, but I knew where they were. So one day when they were gone, I had taken a lighter and started to play with it. Fast forward 20 minutes later, and our house was on fire. My parents didn't know I did it, so I kept quiet about it. Thankfully, we had 2 houses. Story 18. Okay, not really life-threatening, but when I was 11, a girl, 10, talked about doing it with me. I now have severe PTSD because I was so young, and I have other occurrences that this trauma has come back to me when put in almost the same situation. I am still going to therapy. Story 19. Not ruin my life, but end some great friendships. One time on Twitch, I started following this cool creator, but I didn't know that her channel was 18 plus. But I made a great bound, so when I hop into a VC with some people who knew the person and asked how old I was, I said that I'm 20. I'm actually 16, and they believe me. Story 20. I almost killed my dog with a pocket knife. Thankfully, I came to my senses before I did anything. I was not mentally okay at the time, and I am so glad I am out of that place. I love you with all my heart, Odo. I am better now. Story 21. I had a heart transplant. I keep it a secret from anyone new I meet. My family and very close friends know, but nobody else. Story 22. I work at several restaurant games on Roblox, and I would be getting made fun of by everyone at my high school if they found out. Story 23. I burned my grades because I got all Fs in my classes and never told my parents. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.